Welcome to Women and Work in the COVID-19 Era, our virtual event. I'm Erica Pandey, a business reporter at Axios, and I'm coming to you from Hoboken, New Jersey. I want to welcome our audiences on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and on Axios.com. Join the conversation today on Twitter with @Axios and the hashtag #AxiosEvents. Over the next 30 minutes, I'll be joined by my colleague on the Axios politics team, Sarah Mucha, and we'll discuss the outlook for women entrepreneurs and business leaders as they build their businesses back up and move forward in the post-pandemic world. Our first guest is Administrator of the United States Small Business Administration, Isabel Guzman, who's joining me from Washington, D.C. Thanks for being here, Administrator Guzman.
Pleasure to join you. Thanks for having me.
So, 5.4 million new applications to start companies in 2021, a 53% jump from pre-pandemic levels in 2019. Let's start there. What's behind this entrepreneurship boom? And are women, or particularly women of color, driving any part of it?
Women and women of color continue to drive entrepreneurship, and we're seeing, despite the uncertainty that exists during the pandemic, so many businesses are launching, and so many people are starting their American dream of business ownership. And I think that there's been a great economic recovery, as the president has laid out. There has been strong job growth, 6.5 million jobs created last year, and we know that a lot of that drive of job creation growth is with small businesses. They create 2/3 of net new jobs. I think businesses see the opportunity on the horizon as well. And there's just this continued perseverance and resilience that we see across our small businesses.
We know millions of women dropped out of the labor force during COVID. Many of them are working mothers. Do you see small business creation and small business ownership as a way for a lot of these women to get back into the workforce?
Most definitely. I mean, entrepreneurship is a pathway to flexibility, but also, wealth creation for families. I think women in particular are highly entrepreneurial, and especially during times like this, as they're looking for a different balance and use that moment to pursue their dreams. And especially, as we see in underserved communities, women of color, in particular, Latin women and African-American women are starting businesses at such high rates. And that's been historic for the past several years as they continue to seek opportunities for growth.
That flexibility piece of it is so important. What we hear from so many women that dropped out of the labor force is that they're the primary parent. They've got childcare responsibilities at home. And so working and handling all of that during COVID just wasn't possible. But working for yourself and owning a small business obviously adds a lot of that flexibility back in. Is that what you're seeing out there? Is that what you're hearing from women small business owners?
There's definitely some of that, and that's what the SBA is here to do, is to help them empower their businesses so that they can grow and they can add employees, retain that flexibility, but their vision for their business can really develop and grow. And as President Biden has laid out, we need to make more in America, and we know that our businesses are the ones who make the products as well as the services that really define our lives every day and that we depend on. And so it's exciting to see so many people jump into entrepreneurship with visions of changing their trajectory, but also impacting their neighborhoods and communities.
And what are some of the areas you're seeing women start businesses? Is it retail? Is it healthcare? What are some of the hot industries?
It's across the board, frankly. And I think that more and more we're seeing women in STEM eventually pursue careers. And so you're seeing a lot of science and technology startups also being created by women. And so, I've visited with businesses across the country, women-owned businesses that are in every sector. And I think that it's limitless in terms of what our women entrepreneurs can do. And I think right now, more than ever, there's so many large global problems and domestic challenges that we want to overcome around climate change and energy. And so there's opportunity for women to enter there. And so you're seeing them across the board.
I want to talk a little bit about the SBA's role here. I mean, we know that women founders often don't have access to the same capital or resources or mentorship that their male counterparts do. How does the SBA step in to make sure that women entrepreneurs are supported?
I think that's such a relevant point, because connection to resources is really what can power a business. And we saw during the pandemic that so many communities that were historically underserved and faced barriers had challenges even accessing initial relief that was intended to serve them. So, the SBA is focused on expanding its network, and part of President Biden's American Rescue Plan, we launched a community navigator pilot program. And this funds a hub and spoke network around the country, 51 core grantee hubs and over 400 spokes to support all our entrepreneurs, in particular from underserved communities. And there are exactly 27 of the 51 core hubs who are serving women entrepreneurs as well. And then, of course, we have 140 women's business centers, and we invested over $70 million during the pandemic to help continue to expand them and grow them. So we think there's a growing network for women to come and feel comfortable with and served and met where they are to do business.
And I know you've traveled to a lot of these underserved communities. You've been on the ground. Do you have any stories from the field? For our audience, what should give us hope?
Well, what's great, everyone has stepped up during the pandemic to really support small businesses, whether consumers opening up their wallets or opening up their social media accounts to promote small local businesses, or the networks of economic development folks, cities, counties, state governments, as well as the federal government, along with all the technical assistance providers and accelerators. Everyone is just mobilized in a profoundly new way, that recognizing how important small businesses and startups are to our nation's economy and our global competitiveness. And so, on the ground, I've met with some incredible, for example, women's business centers who have spent their own time working 24/7 practically, helping people apply for relief, getting them financially ready to apply for loans and grants. And so that means a lot of technical assistance to build their financial acumen. That has really heartened me, because that creates a whole new level of sophistication across our small businesses that we hope to continue to see grow.
And we've made so much progress, but there is so much more work to do. Looking ahead to the rest of 2022, what are some of the biggest agenda items, biggest challenges that you're tackling?
Well, SBA has scaled dramatically during this time to offer relief, over $1.2 trillion in relief, across the pandemic period. And so we want to make sure that we meet all these new businesses that we've been able to serve where they are, and provide them with the products and services that they need. SBA is focused on providing funding to our small businesses and access to markets, including government contracting, so our women contractors can take advantage of contracting opportunities that are available through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. And then, of course, access to networks, which I've mentioned, some of our strong community navigators and women's business centers. We want to see that support network grow, locally, and to see more businesses come to the SBA so that we can be a part of their team to help them grow.
Right. I should have asked you that at the beginning. 5.4 million new applications. It must be, a circus over there. How is the SBA rising to this challenge?
When I stepped in, and when the Biden-Harris administration stepped in, there was, of course, massive relief happening at the time through Paycheck Protection Program and COVID EIDL. We've really tried to prioritize getting funds into the hands of businesses who needed it the most, the smallest of the small. We've revamped programs, implemented new programs, and the team has been incredible in making sure that the SBA can meet this moment where our small businesses need us the most, to be able to start and grow their businesses and be resilient. We want to focus on making sure that the SBA is customer first and technology forward to meet all our businesses in this marketplace and serve them so that they can help us continue to have this great economic recovery.
And the last question I want to ask you, we talked about challenges looking ahead to 2022. Is 2022 going to be overall a better year for women in the workforce than the last two have been? And if so, why? If not, why not?
We need to continue to tackle challenges for women in the workforce and women in entrepreneurship. You mentioned childcare. Of course, it's a huge challenge for so many women. We saw 3 million women leave the workforce and not yet return because of childcare challenges and affordability. So the president's vision to lowering costs for American families is really critical. We need to lower the cost of healthcare and childcare, and that'll help our women as well as our small businesses who employ half the private workforce. And also, of course, for our women entrepreneurs. And so we want to see those big challenges tackled, as well as the support ecosystems there for our small businesses, and especially our women entrepreneurs who are really starting so many of these businesses today.
Thanks for the conversation, Administrator Guzman.
Great to talk to you. Thank you.
And next, a View from the Top segment with Mia Boykins.
Thanks, Erica, and thank you to our sponsor, Meta, for making this conversation possible. Now, joining us from New York, is the Vice President of Meta's Global Business Group, Nicola Mendelsohn. Welcome.
Thank you. Delighted to be here with you today.
Awesome. Nicola, let's start with the big picture. From your viewpoint, what is the current state of small business for women-owned businesses?
Well, Mia, I think it's really challenging for women out there right now, and the data backs it up. So one of the things that we've been doing at Meta is actually surveying small business owners for many years. In fact, we've got one of the largest surveys of small businesses around the world. And in January, we surveyed small businesses during the height of Omicron. And unfortunately, it showed that a quarter of US women-led small business doors were still shuttered in January. And that was compared to 18% of male-led counterparts. Globally, the numbers are even worse because the closure rates for women-led businesses have risen 6 percentage points since July last year, and that's compared to little or no change for male-led businesses. Now, despite being really hardest hit by the Omicron wave, the findings also show something really interesting, and that's that women are actually leading the way with online tools through the pandemic. So nearly 60% of women-led SMBs actually report using digital tools to be able to communicate with customers. And that's compared to about, just under half of male-led SMBs. So I think this is exciting because what I see here is that if you're a female entrepreneur and you're not currently today using online tools that are available for free, then actually you're missing an opportunity to be able to connect with the customers, both in your local community and beyond as well. And throughout the pandemic, we're seeing more and more women coming together, women in business, to support each other, to get advice from one another. And today we see that 73% of Facebook groups related to entrepreneurship in the last year have been created by women. So that gives me a pause for, optimism and hope there.
Wow, well, definitely girl power ahead of Women's Month. And thank you so much for an insightful response. In your experience and understanding of the metaverse, what is the one big thing that you want female entrepreneurs who are interested in the metaverse to know right now?
So I think it's really important that the fully realized version of the metaverse that Mark Zuckerberg has been talking about, that's still 5 to 10 years out. But there are opportunities that exist today that I would hope female entrepreneurs who are watching, who are listening, can really start to think about. And augmented reality is a really good example of this. So with Spark AR, anyone can create an AR effect. They can begin to experiment. They can begin to have fun. And what's really encouraging to see is that over half of Spark AR creators, which are publishing effects for Facebook and Instagram, are women, and that includes small businesses as well. So a good example is with Simplicity. It's a cosmetic brand in Virginia. And Irina, the owner, she knew she needed to get creative through the pandemic to get her products in front of customers. So her lifesaver was really Spark AR, because what it did was allow customers to be able to sort of try on virtually the eyeshadows, the lipsticks, the lip glosses right from their home. And Spark AR Go is basically like a virtual studio. So you can create AR effects that track your face and basically change the world around you. And we've seen that with Simplicity's AR filters have now been used 19,000 times and captured almost 2,000 times. So just imagine what that possibility is going to be like for that one business in the metaverse. And because so many of the products that we have today are going to be forming a crucial part of future, metaverse ecosystem, what people are doing today, what the women entrepreneurs are doing today on Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, or WhatsApp are going to be absolutely crucial and really kind of foundational to be able to help them grow their business in the metaverse. So get comfortable on the creative tools today, and they'll prepare you for what's coming next.
Definitely. Yes, I agree. The metaverse just holds a lot of opportunity, and there's so much innovation, and it's exciting time to be a woman in business. There's certainly many opportunities for growth that women can tap into. Switching gears to focus on economic resilience, how is Meta supporting women-owned businesses on a path to recovery?
So many things. And it's March and it's Women's History Month, but we don't stop just for this month. We're doing the work that we've been doing for over a decade now, which is to support and celebrate women across a variety of areas. And we've got some exciting plans. First off, we're continuing our long-standing investment in She Means Business, which is a global digital skills program that I actually launched about 6 years ago back in the UK. And today we've now supported over 1.5 million women all over the world. Now, from talking to the women, what we're doing, we're giving them more of what they're asking for. And that is more around finance. So we're expanding the program to address a gap that women face in financial literacy. This is going to help educate women on how to effectively manage their business finances, from financial reporting to understanding financial health, and so much more. And to anybody that's watching wants to know where to go to fb.com/SheMeansBusinessHub. So that's one big area. The other area is around access to capital. That's what women tell us remains a challenge for the business owners. And here, what's really exciting this month is, we committed last year $2 million to an incredible organization called Reimagine Main Street. And that's now being distributed to Black women-owned small businesses. And businesses all over the country are going to be receiving cash grants up to $50,000. And this builds upon our $100 million global grant that we launched earlier in the pandemic. And I've been lucky enough to hear about and learn about so many of the amazing examples from our grant winners. And there's an amazing lady called Courtney Johnson, runs Agape. And it started out as a handmade jewelry business about 2006, more than a decade ago. Now, in the past, 90% of her sales came from in-person events. And of course, over the last couple of years, that wasn't possible. So she pivoted online. She started selling jewelry kits for people to make their own jewelry, and made video trainings for them as well. And so she was able to use the Meta grant that we gave her with overhead expenses, using personalized ads to find new customers that are interested in jewelry making. And so her story is one of many hundreds that inspire me. And today her business is thriving. But we also still know, it's hard for women. The reality is difficult in terms of some of the challenges that are out there. And as I said, some of the things that we looked at in the data showed that actually a third of US women-led businesses are still reporting lower sales compared to the same time last year. So one of the things that we did is actually launch something called the Meta Invoice Fast Track Program. And that's to help female entrepreneurs and other underrepresented groups in the US address the barriers addressing capital. And I love this program. I love it because, many of our suppliers were struggling with cash flow, in part because of the long payment terms for invoice payments. So we began to buy invoices from diverse suppliers for a low fixed fee, no profit, so that the money could be made available to them at once, and of course used to pay bills, their rent, their employees. And in just the first month alone of this program, we funded over $6 million in invoices, from coffee roasters and personal care brands to construction businesses. So I know we don't have a lot of time. There's a lot of other things we're doing, but that's just a few that I'm really excited about.
Thank you for joining Axios, Nicola.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Now over to Sarah Mucha.
Hi, I'm Sarah Mucha, politics reporter for Axios, and our final guest is Senator Joni Ernst, Republican from Iowa. Senator, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's great to be with you, Sarah. Thank you.
Let's get right into it. It's no question that women and women-owned small businesses were hit specifically hard during the pandemic. You have said that you're working on solutions, and that includes introducing a piece of legislation later this month called the Empowering Women in Small Business Act. What specifically would your bill do?
Yes, thank you so much, Sarah. The bill would allow women greater access to SBIC venture capital. We know that women often do struggle as they're financing a new small business. So this would increase those opportunities. And paired with a number of our other initiatives through the Small Business Committee, through a number of bills that I have, we are hopeful to see many more women gain that access to capital and start successful small businesses.
And you work with Senator Tammy Duckworth, the Democrat from Illinois, along with a number of other Democrats on the Small Business Committee. Have you spoken to members of the other party about getting their support for this piece of legislation?
Yes, we do continue to work with other members, both on the committee and through other avenues. Of course, this is an important topic to so many. Many of the states are like Iowa, where 99% of our small business or our business is small business. So it is very important to members, not just those that serve on the Small Business Committee, but everyone else across the spectrum. And we are celebrating Women's History Month. So this is a very timely topic.
Are you anticipating that you'll have bipartisan support when you introduce this piece of legislation at this point?
I do, Sarah, and that's really exciting because on the Small Business Committee, so many of the issues that we work on really are bipartisan issues, again, because small business does tend to be the backbone of many of our states. And so allowing women greater access to that venture capital through the Small Business Administration, through SBIC, as we have laid out in my bill, I think it'll be very enticing and exciting to both parties.
Now, you have talked about the impact of inflation and supply chain issues, both which really became prevalent during the pandemic, on women-owned small businesses. In his State of the Union, President Biden called on companies to lower their costs, not wages, and bring supply chains back home in order to combat inflation. Do you agree with that?
Well, I don't agree fully with this. I do believe that if we could bring costs down, the businesses certainly would. But that's where the problem is. It's with the supply chain issues. And a lot of those are resolved far above and beyond the small business level. So it's really our small businesses that are feeling the brunt of these supply chain issues. And a lot of that, again, can't be worked out by those small businesses. They can't lower the cost of those containers as they're coming from overseas. They certainly can't lower the cost of regulation imposed on them by big federal government. All of those things are issues that we need to resolve in the federal government. So through Congress, through the administration, it's the small businesses that are really at the end of those supply chain issues. Believe me, if they could lower costs, most certainly they would do that. But they can't lower costs without eliminating employees, cutting back on benefits. Those are not the right answer when it comes to small business. So I do believe that we need to bring more of our business back to the United States. And a lot of that can be done with our small businesses. And I will be introducing a bill as well that increases American competition. It requires that small businesses be headquartered in the United States and again, provides additional capital for small businesses that focus on domestic agriculture and manufacturing, production, and the technologies necessary for national defense. So we have a number of ways that we can help small businesses and increase competition right here domestically. But asking small businesses to lower their costs, a lot of that is not on small businesses' shoulders. It really does come from much higher up the supply chain.
And many of these measures, in order to bring supply chains back home and other aspects of it, were included in Biden's Build Back Better agenda, which you voted no on. Do you see a bipartisan path forward on some of these sort of broader economic proposals that would then help women small businesses or women-owned small businesses?
Yeah, there are a number of ways that we can move forward. And it was interesting that the Biden Build Back Better plan, which was a lot of expanded social programs, I didn't feel was necessary for making American small business stronger. We already had a number of those initiatives that have been proposed through Congress in a bipartisan manner. So things that we all agreed upon. Several of those issues will focus on things like childcare, which is a really big issue for women-owned small business. I do have a bipartisan bill with Jackie Rosen that would allow greater access to lending for nonprofit entities as they are looking at expanding or building daycares. So there's a lot of solutions like that that were already in the works before the president came out with his bill. If we could focus on the bipartisan measures that have already been proposed in Congress, I think a number of these issues we could actually get over the finish line.
Well, and you wrote in an op-ed, I think it was last year in the Gazette, you addressed that federal contracting obligations for women-owned businesses have fallen short. Why has the government fallen short for decades when it comes to women-owned businesses?
They are falling short, Sarah, because we are not holding them accountable. And we have to do that, absolutely. And it is amazing. When I wrote that article, doing the research for that, it was amazing to me that the federal government has a goal of at least 5% of federal contracts going to women-owned small business. And yet only twice in the last, almost 30 years or so. It's been since 1994. And only since then have we seen 2 times that the federal government has hit that goal. That is really amazing. We're only talking about 5% of federal contracts, and yet the federal government can't seem to get there. So we really do have to press them on this issue and make sure that they are considering women-owned small businesses as they're looking at federal contracting. This also would be very helpful for those women-owned small businesses.
Senator, we only have 2 minutes left, and I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about this as a senator from Iowa and also as a member of the Armed Services Committee. I know you're watching this issue more closely even than most. Obviously, the prices of corn and wheat have increased as a result of the war in Ukraine. Is this something that is good for Iowan farmers, but bad for the Iowa consumer?
Well, I wish it were good for Iowa farmers. The issue is that even while corn prices are going up and wheat prices as well for many farmers across the Midwest, the input prices have gone up as well. And one thing a lot of consumers won't think about is the cost of producing those types of commodities. A lot of our fertilizer, the potash that is used in our Iowa fields and across the Midwest, it comes from Russia. And we also know that fuel costs have gone up significantly. And so a lot of the inputs, again, have risen, as has the cost of corn and wheat. So it really comes down to more of a break-even scenario for our Iowa farmers. And unfortunately, it does increase prices then on the consumers.
Well, that is all the time that we have left for today. I so appreciate you taking the time to chat with us about small businesses in the COVID era.
Thank you. And I certainly appreciate the attention too. We know that talking about women-owned small businesses during COVID is not a big, sexy topic, but it is an extremely important topic. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for yet another virtual conversation that's made everyone smarter, faster. If you're interested in learning more about workforce trends, you can sign up for Axios' What's Next newsletter on axios.com/newsletters or by finding it right on the app. You can also tune in to the inaugural What's Next Summit that's taking place on April 5th by going to axios.com/events. Thank you all so much again, and we'll see you on axios.com.